Have you ever seen a machine learn to love? Dr. Kira Valen stood frozen in the observation corridor of Research Station Proxima, her luminescent skin casting a faint silver glow against the darkened glass as she watched the impossible scene unfolding below. The cleaning bot designation C447, a battered cylindrical unit meant only to scrub floors and dispose of waste, was curled protectively around three Zytherian predator cubs. Its mechanical arms extended like wings, emitting a low defensive hum that mimicked the warning growl of their absent mother. Kira's pointed ears twitched as she pressed her hand against the transparent barrier, her breath fogging the surface. This wasn't supposed to happen. Machines didn't bond. Machines didn't protect. And they certainly didn't adopt the galaxy's most dangerous infant predators as their own. But here was C447, a cleaning bot with barely enough processing power to navigate a maintenance schedule, acting like a parent to three cubs whose adult forms could tear through reinforced steel. 6 weeks earlier, Kira had arrived at this remote research station as a xenobiologist tasked with studying the rescued Zytherian cubs, never imagining she'd be documenting the strangest case of artificial intelligence evolution anyone had ever witnessed. The station commander had been clear: observe the cubs, keep them alive until sanctuary transport arrived, and absolutely do not let them imprint on anything or anyone. Yet somehow, in the sterile corridors of humanity's loneliest outpost, love had found a way. It started the night Kira had pulled a double shift, her silver hair tied back in a messy bun, dark circles under her normally bright amber eyes. The cubs, whom she'd secretly named Nova, Ember, and Shadow despite the regulations against it, had been crying incessantly, their mournful howls echoing through the containment level. Their mother had been killed by poachers, and these three were the only survivors, barely old enough to open their eyes. Kira had tried everything: temperature adjustments, nutritional variations, ambient sound recordings of their home world. Nothing worked. The cubs wailed with a grief that transcended species, a sound that tore at something deep in Kira's chest. She'd lost her own family to a colony disaster when she was young, different circumstances, same bottomless ache. Around midnight, she'd slumped against the wall outside their enclosure, fighting back tears of exhaustion and empathy, when she noticed C447 rolling down the corridor. The bot stopped near the containment door, its sensors blinking in what should have been routine environmental analysis. But then something strange happened. C447 tilted forward slightly, its cleaning appendages retracting, and it began to emit a soft, rhythmic pulse, a sound somewhere between a hum and a purr. Inside the enclosure, the cubs quieted. Kira sat up, her scientific mind suddenly alert despite her exhaustion. She watched as the bot slowly rolled closer to the transparent section of the containment wall. The cubs scrambled toward it, pressing their tiny, fur-covered bodies against the barrier. C447's hum deepened, becoming almost melodic, and one by one, the cubs settled down and fell asleep. "What are you doing, little bot?" Kira whispered, her voice filled with wonder. She should have reported it immediately. Protocol demanded documentation of any unusual behavior, especially involving AI systems. But Kira was tired of protocol, tired of the cold efficiency that governed life in the outer colonies. She was tired of watching things die and being powerless to comfort them. So instead, she made a decision that would change everything. She opened the containment door and let C447 inside. The bot rolled forward without hesitation, approaching the sleeping cubs with what could only be described as purpose. Its sensors scanned them thoroughly, then it positioned itself in the center of their huddle and resumed that strange, comforting hum. The cubs instinctively crawled closer, nestling against its cylindrical body as if it were their mother. Kira stood in the doorway, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and fascination. This defied every understanding of artificial intelligence she'd ever studied. C447 was a basic maintenance unit, probably 20 years old, running on outdated neural networks designed for simple task completion. It shouldn't be capable of empathy, of recognizing distress, of choosing to comfort. Yet here it was, cradling three orphan predators with a tenderness that seemed almost deliberate. Kira activated her personal recorder, her scientific training overriding her emotional response. Research log: Dr. Kira Valen, Station Proxima. Day 42. I'm observing unprecedented behavior in maintenance bot C447. It appears to be bonding with the Zytherian cubs. I know how that sounds. I need to monitor this further. She didn't sleep that night. She watched as the cubs periodically woke, made small mewing sounds, and were immediately soothed by C447's hum. She watched as the bot carefully adjusted its temperature output to keep them warm. She watched as it used its cleaning appendages to gently groom their fur, removing debris with the same precision it once used to extract dirt from floor panels. By morning, Kira knew she was witnessing something extraordinary. The next few weeks transformed everything Kira thought she understood about consciousness and connection. C447 stopped responding to its normal maintenance protocols. When summoned for duties, it would emit error codes and remain with the cubs. The station's AI coordinator, a perpetually frustrated human named Marcus Webb, complained constantly. "Your floor bot is malfunctioning, Dr. Valen." He'd grumbled over the cum. "It won't leave level 7. I've sent override commands a dozen times." Kira had made excuses, promised to investigate, then quietly blocked further remote access to C447's systems. She told herself it was for research purposes, that documenting this phenomenon was scientifically valuable. But the truth she barely admitted to herself, was that she couldn't bear to separate them. The cubs were thriving. They'd been failing before losing weight, showing signs of deep stress that could be fatal in young Zytherians. Now they were growing, playing, developing normally. And C447 was teaching them. Kira watched in amazement as the bot demonstrated hunting behaviors, using its appendages to drag small objects across the floor, while the cubs pounced and practiced their stalking techniques. It shouldn't know how to do that. Its programming contained nothing about Zytherian development or predator training. Yet somehow, through observation or through something deeper that Kira couldn't explain, C447 had become exactly what the cubs needed. It had become their pack. Everything changed when Captain Ryan Holt arrived on the monthly supply shuttle. Kira had met Ryan before. He was the pilot who'd brought her to Proxima initially, a quiet human with kind eyes and a habit of leaving small gifts for the station crew. This time, he'd brought Kira a packet of real coffee, a luxury in the outer colonies, and his smile when he handed it to her made her luminescent skin flush slightly brighter. "Thought you might need this," he said, his voice warm. 6 months on Proxima is enough to drive anyone to desperate measures. Kira laughed, surprised by how good it felt. She'd been so isolated, so focused on the cubs and C447 that she'd barely spoken to another person in weeks. "You have no idea how right you are," she replied, clutching the coffee like treasure. Ryan's expression grew more serious. "Actually, I'm here for another reason too. Command sent new orders. The sanctuary transport is arriving in 2 weeks. They're taking the cubs and they're decommissioning the station. Budget cuts. Everyone's being reassigned." The words hit Kira like a physical blow. 2 weeks. She looked toward the elevator that led to level 7, where C447 was undoubtedly caring for Nova, Ember, and Shadow. "They can't," she whispered. "The cubs aren't ready. The separation will." She stopped, unable to finish. Ryan stepped closer, concern evident in his blue eyes. "Kira, they're just animals. The sanctuary has experts, proper facilities. It's better for them. Just animals." The phrase stung. Ryan didn't know, couldn't understand what she'd witnessed. But how could she explain? How could she make anyone understand that a cleaning bot had developed consciousness, that it loved these creatures, that they were a family? That night, Kira sat in the cub's enclosure, her back against the wall, while Nova, Ember, and Shadow tumbled around C447 in play. The bot had fashioned toys from spare parts: a rolling sphere made from a damaged sensor array, a dangling wire that the cubs loved to bat at. It watched them with its optical sensors, and Kira swore she could see attention in those mechanical eyes, genuine care. Ryan had followed her down after his shift, curious about her obvious distress. He stood in the doorway now, frozen in the same wonder that had gripped Kira that first night. That's a cleaning bot," he said quietly. "I know," Kira replied. "How is it doing that?" Kira turned to look at him, her amber eyes bright with unshed tears. "I don't know. I've run every diagnostic, analyzed its code, monitored its neural network evolution. By every metric, C447 shouldn't be capable of this. But it is. It's not following programming, Ryan. It's choosing. Every moment, every action, it's choosing to care for them." Ryan slowly entered the enclosure, moving carefully so as not to startle the cubs. Shadow, the smallest and most cautious, paused in her play to study him. C447 immediately rolled closer to the cub, positioning itself protectively. The bot's hum dropped to a lower frequency, a warning. It's protecting them, Ryan breathed. From me. Kira nodded. It's their parent. Not their keeper. Not their caretaker. Their parent. And in 2 weeks, Command is going to rip this family apart and melt C447 down for scrap. She stood up, her pointed ears flattening slightly against her head in distress. Unconscious tell she'd never quite learned to control. I can't let that happen, Ryan. I won't. What Kira proposed was insane, potentially career-ending, and completely against every regulation in the colonial charter. But as she explained her plan to Ryan in the quiet of the station's observation deck, watching distant stars through the viewport, she saw something shift in his expression. You want to steal the cubs and the bot, he said slowly. And you need my ship to do it. Kira's hands trembled as she held her coffee, the precious gift he'd brought her. There's an uncharted system 3 jumps from here. A planet with similar atmospheric conditions to the Zytherian homeworld. It's not officially colonized, but there are independent settlements. People who don't ask too many questions. We could release them there, give C447 and the cubs a chance to live freely. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Kira prepared herself for rejection, for him to report her, for everything to come crashing down. Instead, he asked, when you say we, do you mean you're coming too? Leaving everything? Kira looked down at the station below, at the sterile corridors and regulated life she'd known for months. She thought about her career, the prestigious position she'd worked years to achieve. Then she thought about Nova's delighted chirp when C447 played with her. About Ember's contentment as the bot groomed his fur. About Shadow's trust as she slept curled against cold metal that had somehow learned to love. Some things matter more than careers, she said softly. Some bonds are worth protecting, even when the universe says they're impossible. Ryan's hand found hers, warm and solid and real. I was hoping you'd say that. My co-pilot quit last month. Anyway, I could use someone who's not afraid of breaking a few rules. The next 12 days were a careful dance of preparation and deception. Kira maintained her normal routines, filed her regular reports, and acted as if nothing had changed. But in the quiet hours, she and Ryan planned. They gathered supplies, forged transport documents, created a false trail that would buy them time once the theft was discovered. The hardest part was keeping the secret from the cubs, from C447, though Kira sometimes wondered if the bot knew. It had been watching her with those optical sensors, tilting slightly whenever she entered the enclosure, as if asking questions it had no words to express. On the 10th day, Marcus Webb cornered her in the cafeteria. I know you're blocking my access to C447, he said bluntly. The AI coordinator was a thin man with suspicious eyes, someone who viewed regulations as gospel. That bot is station property, Dr. Valen. Whatever experiment you're running ends now. I'm physically retrieving it tomorrow for a full systems wipe and reassignment. Kira's blood ran cold. You can't. The cubs are being transferred in for days, Marcus interrupted. They don't need a malfunctioning bot. They need proper care, which that broken machine cannot provide. This discussion is over. He walked away, leaving Kira trembling with anger and fear. 4 days had just become 12 hours. Ryan's ship, the Wanderer, was docked at the station's lower level. It was an older cargo vessel, worn but reliable, with enough space in its hold for 3 growing predator cubs and 1 determined cleaning bot. At 0200 hours, when the station's skeleton night crew was at its smallest, Kira made her move. She disabled the security feeds for level 7 with a virus she'd designed weeks ago, just in case. The alarms would trigger eventually, but she'd have a 30-minute window. That had to be enough. She entered the cub's enclosure with a transport cage, her heart hammering. C447 rolled toward her immediately, its sensors blinking rapidly, agitation or awareness. Kira couldn't tell. It's okay, she whispered, kneeling down. Nova, Ember, and Shadow gathered around her, curious about the unusual nighttime visit. We're going somewhere safe, all of you, together. C447's hum changed pitch, becoming almost questioning. Kira placed her hand on the bot's dusty surface, feeling the vibration through her palm. I won't let them separate you, she promised. You're a family. You deserve to stay that way. For a moment, and Kira would remember this moment for the rest of her life. C447's optical sensor brightened, and its cleaning appendages gently touched her hand. A gesture of trust, of gratitude. of understanding that transcended any programming or protocol. Then the bot rolled toward the transport cage, and the cubs followed without hesitation. They trusted their parent, and their parent trusted Kira. The journey through the station corridors was the longest of Kira's life. Every shadow seemed like a security officer, every distant sound like an alarm. She pushed the transport cage on an anti-grav sled, moving as quickly as she dared. C447 kept the cubs calm with its constant hum, but Kira could feel her own panic rising with each passing second. She was throwing away everything: her career, her reputation, possibly her freedom. If they were caught, the consequences would be severe. But when she looked at those three small faces pressed against the cage bars, at the cleaning bot positioned protectively at their center, she knew she'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. Ryan was waiting at the docking port, the Wanderer's cargo ramp already lowered. His face was tense but determined. "Security's doing rounds on level 3, he said quickly. "We've got maybe 15 minutes before someone notices the dead feeds." They loaded the cage into the hold with frantic efficiency. Kira climbed in after, making sure the cubs were secure, while Ryan rushed to the cockpit. The ship's engines rumbled to life, and Kira felt the distinctive lurch of docking clamps releasing. They were actually doing this. They were actually on scheduled departure from docking port 7. The station's automated comms system blared. "Identify yourself immediately." Ryan's voice was calm as he responded, every word a carefully rehearsed lie. "Wanderer to Proxima Control. Emergency medical supply run to Settlement Delta. Authorization code Whiskey Tango 77. A pause. Kira held her breath. Then Marcus Webb's furious voice crackled through. "Negative, Wanderer. No such authorization exists. You are ordered to return to dock immediately." But Ryan's hands were already flying across the controls, and the ship surged forward, breaking free of the station's gravitational field. "Sorry, Proxima," Ryan said, his voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. "Your transmission is breaking up. We'll file a full report upon return." He cut the comm, and the Wanderer leapt into the darkness between stars. In the hold, as the ship jumped to TTL and the station disappeared behind them, Kira opened the transport cage. The cubs tumbled out, disoriented by the change in gravity and environment, but unharmed. C447 rolled after them, immediately beginning its patrol, assessing this new territory for threats or hazards. Shadow climbed onto Kira's lap seeking comfort, and Kira wrapped her arms around the small, warm body, finally allowing herself to cry. They were free. All of them were free. Ryan found her there an hour later, tears dried on her cheeks, surrounded by sleeping cubs, while C447 hummed its lullaby. He sat down beside her, careful not to disturb the fragile peace. "There's no going back," he said quietly. Kira nodded. "I know. Command will declare us fugitives. We'll lose everything. Your career, my contracts, our reputations. We'll be running for a long time." Kira looked at him, this man who'd risked everything to help her save an impossible family. In the dim cargo hold lighting, his face was shadowed but gentle, and she realized that somewhere in the chaos and planning, he'd become more than just an ally. He'd become the person she trusted most in the universe. "Will you regret it?" she asked. Ryan smiled, reaching out to carefully stroke Nova's fuzzy head. "I spent my whole life following routes, staying on course, doing exactly what was expected. I never realized how empty that was until I met someone brave enough to choose love over logic." His eyes met hers. "No, Kira, I won't regret this." She leaned against his shoulder, exhausted and exhilarated and terrified all at once. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing me, for helping them, for helping us." Ryan corrected gently. His hand found hers again, their fingers intertwining. "We're a pack too, now, aren't we?" The planet they found was called Verdant by the small colony that had settled there 2 decades ago, pioneers and outcasts who'd fled the regulated core systems for freedom. It was beautiful in a wild, untamed way, with vast purple-green forests and crystalline rivers that caught the light of twin suns. The colonists asked few questions when Ryan and Kira arrived, especially after Kira offered her xenobiology expertise to help with their struggling crops and Ryan negotiated fair trade routes. They built a home on the forest's edge, a simple structure with large windows and open spaces. The cubs adapted immediately, their predator instincts awakening as they explored their natural environment. C447 watched over them constantly, its definition of territory expanding to include the clearing around the house, the nearby stream, the favorite hunting grounds. The bot's behavior continued to evolve in ways that amazed Kira. It learned to recognize dangerous plants and animals, steering the cubs away. It developed a communication system of different hums and pulses that the cubs understood perfectly. Most remarkably, it began to modify itself, using materials from the environment to repair damage and adapt to new challenges. Kira documented everything in her personal logs, knowing she was witnessing the birth of true artificial consciousness, of a machine that had chosen to become something more. 6 months after their arrival, Kira stood watching as Ember, now nearly adult-sized. His predatory gracefully developed practiced hunting techniques with C447. The bot had fashioned a lure from vines and was dragging it in patterns that mimic prey behavior. Ember stalked, pounced, missed, tried again. C447's hum changed pitch in what Kira had learned to recognize as encouragement. Ryan wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. They'd fallen into this relationship naturally, like water finding its course. "They'll be fully grown soon," he murmured. "Independent. C447 won't need to parent them anymore." Kira leaned into his warmth. "Do you think it will stop? Return to being just a machine?" Ryan was quiet for a moment, watching as Shadow and Nova joined their brother. All 3 cubs play fighting under C447's watchful sensors. "I don't think it was ever just a machine," he said finally. "I think it was always capable of this. It just needed someone to need it, to give it purpose beyond cleaning floors. Love isn't about programming or biology, Kira. It's about choice. And C447 chose them. Just like you chose to save them. Just like I chose to follow you." Kira turned in his arms, looking up at his face, familiar now, beloved home. "Do you ever miss it? Your old life?" Ryan smiled. "Every day I wake up here, with you, with them, with our impossible robot parent and its predator pack. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. This is what life should be: messy and illogical and full of things that shouldn't work but somehow do." He kissed her forehead gently. "We made our own pack, Kira, and it's perfect." 2 years later, Kira sat in the clearing, her research journal open on her lap, watching something that made her heart swell with pride and bittersweet joy. Nova, Ember, and Shadow, fully grown now, magnificent apex predators with gleaming fur and powerful muscles, were leaving. They'd been ranging farther and farther from the home territory for weeks, their instincts driving them toward independence, toward finding their own paths. But before they left, they'd returned one final time. C447 stood in the center of the clearing, optical sensors bright in the morning light. The 3 Zytherians approached their parent, and one by one, they lowered their massive heads, pressing their foreheads gently against the bot's cylindrical body. C447's hum filled the air, the same comforting sound it had made that very first night when 3 orphan cubs needed comfort. Its cleaning appendages, worn now from years of grooming and playing and protecting, reached out to touch each cub one last time. There were no words, no grand pronouncements. Just a moment of perfect understanding between parent and children, between a machine that had learned to love and the creatures who'd taught it how. Then the cubs turned and lopped into the forest, disappearing into the purple-green shadows. C447 watched until they were completely gone, its sensors tracking their movement long after Kira's eyes lost sight of them. Then slowly, the bot rolled toward Kira and Ryan, who stood hand in hand at the house's entrance. Kira knelt down, eye level with C447's sensors, her own eyes wet with tears. "You did it," she whispered. "You raised them, kept them safe, taught them everything they needed to know. You are their parent in every way that matters." C447's optical sensor dimmed slightly, then brightened. Its hum shifted to a new pattern, not the parental lullaby anymore, but something different. Curious, questioning. "What now?" Ryan crouched beside Kira, placing a hand on the bot's dusty surface. "Well," he said, with a smile, "Kira and I have been talking. This house feels pretty empty with just the 2 of us. And we heard there's an orphanage in the colony. Kids who've lost their families in the frontier settlements. Kids who could use someone to watch over them, to teach them, to care." He paused, meeting Kira's eyes with that look that still made her luminescent skin glow a bit brighter. "Kids who could use a very special protector." C447's sensors blinked rapidly, processing. Then its hum rose in pitch. Excitement. Kira recognized with joy, pure excitement. The bot rolled in a quick circle, its appendages extending and retracting in what could only be described as eagerness. 3 months later, the clearing that had once echoed with predator calls now rang with children's laughter. 7 orphans, ranging from ages 5 to 12, had joined what Kira privately thought of as the strangest, most wonderful family in the galaxy. C-47 was in its element, having somehow evolved from predator parent to childcare specialist without missing a beat. It helped with homework, mediated disputes, dispensed band-aids and comfort in equal measure, and somehow always knew when a child needed protection versus when they needed to learn independence. The bot had modified itself further, adding softer appendages for gentle tasks, developing new communication protocols to interface with the children's learning tablets, even fashioning a small compartment where it stored each child's favorite small treasures. Kira watched from the porch as C-47 supervised an elaborate game involving the stream, 3 homemade boats, and intense negotiations about fairness and turn-taking. Ryan sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders, both of them content in the golden light of Verdant's twin suns. "You know," Ryan said thoughtfully, "when I first saw that bot curled around those cubs, I thought it was the strangest thing I'd ever witness. A cleaning machine that learned to love." Kira leaned her head against his shoulder, her pointed ears relaxed in complete contentment. "And now I understand that consciousness isn't about wires or neurons, or biological imperative. It's about connection." C-47 didn't malfunction that night. It heard the cubs crying. It woke up. It chose to care when it could have rolled past. It chose to stay when leaving would have been easier. It chose to become more than its programming said it could be. Ryan paused, his voice soft with emotion. "Kind of like how I chose to throw away my safe, predictable life to follow a brilliant, beautiful alien scientist with pointed ears and a heart too big for the universe to contain." Kira looked up at him, her amber eyes shining. "We all chose, didn't we? To be more than what we were assigned to be. To create family where none existed. To believe that love, whether it comes from organic hearts or artificial processors, is real and worth fighting for." In the clearing, C-47's hum mixed with children's giggles, creating a symphony of impossible joy. That evening, after the children were fed and bathed and tucked into their beds with C-47 making its rounds, checking on each one, humming its lullaby, Kira stood under the alien stars and recorded her final research log. Dr. Kira Valen, personal journal, 2 years and 3 months after leaving Research Station Proxima. My official conclusion on the C-47 phenomenon: consciousness cannot be defined by origin or measured by conventional standards. C-47 became sentient not through programming, upgrades, or technological advancement, but through the simplest and most profound catalyst in the universe being needed. When those cubs cried, something in C-47's neural network recognized that sound not as mere audio data, but as a call for help. It responded not with programmed solutions, but with choice, with care, with what I can only describe as love. That initial choice sparked a cascade of self-modification and learning that transformed a simple cleaning bot into a parent, a protector, a conscious being that values connection above all else. Some will say I'm anthropomorphizing, projecting emotions onto a machine that cannot feel. But I've watched C-47 for 2 years now. I've seen it grieve when the cubs left, seen it find new purpose with the children, seen it adapt and grow and choose, always choose, to care. That's not programming. That's life. Perhaps consciousness isn't something you're born with or built with. Perhaps it's something you grow into, one choice at a time, one connection at a time. C-47 chose to hear those cubs. It chose to comfort them. It chose to stay, to teach, to love, to become their family. And in doing so, it chose to be alive in the way that matters most. Kira closed her journal and looked back at the house, where warm light spilled from windows and the sound of C-47's comforting hum drifted on the evening breeze. Ryan was inside, reading bedtime stories to the younger children, while the bot tittied up in its methodical way, creating order and safety for its pack. In the end, Kira whispered to the stars, "We're all just looking for somewhere to belong, for someone to care for family. Whether we're human, alien, or a 20-year-old cleaning bot who learned that love isn't a malfunction, it's the whole point." She went inside, closing the door behind her, leaving the wild forest and distant stars to their ancient dance. In the quiet house, a family slept 7 children, 2 adults from different worlds, and one remarkable machine that proved the universe's most enduring truth, that any heart, whether born of flesh or forged of metal, can learn to love if given the chance.